Welcome to the 7 Days Report. I'm your host, Vasilios Nikolaos Vitsalogiannis. We are here every weekend at 12 and 21 to bring you the latest headlines, in-depth analysis, and insightful commentary on the stories that matter most. Whether you're tuning in for a recap of the week or looking for a deeper understanding of global events, we've got you covered. Let's start with our first news. Cuba's leadership firmly rejected U.S. President Donald Trump's demand to make a deal amid threats to sever the island's long-standing Venezuelan oil lifeline. President Miguel Díaz-Canel declared that no one dictates our actions, emphasizing Cuba's sovereignty as Trump warned of zero oil or funds flowing from Venezuela. The clash escalated after U.S. forces captured Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro on the 3rd of January 2026, disrupting Havana's supply of roughly 35,000 barrels daily. Trump posted on Truth Social, "Cuba has relied for many years on substantial amounts of oil and money from Venezuela. There will be no more oil or money going to Cuba, zero." He urged a deal before it's too late, without detailing terms. Cuban Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez countered that Cuba holds the absolute right to fuel from allies, slamming U.S. hegemony as a global threat. For decades, Venezuela subsidized Cuba's economy in exchange for alleged security services, a claim Havana denies. Recent U.S. seizures of oil tankers have exacerbated Cuba's fuel crisis, leading to blackouts and shortages. Díaz-Canel insisted Cuba remains open to serious dialogue on equal terms, but blamed the U.S. blockade for migration woes and economic strain. Havana residents expressed anxiety, with one telling Reuters that Cuba would be affected quite a lot, yet defiant against pressure. Trump hinted at talks on Cuban migrants, but confirmed only technical contacts. As of the 12th of January 2026, no shipments have reached Cuba from Venezuela, which has heightened tensions. President Donald Trump boldly declared inflation defeated during a high-stakes meeting with top business leaders on Tuesday, brushing off fresh government data, revealing a spike in grocery prices that has households reeling. Speaking at the White House to executives from Walmart, Kroger, and Procter & Gamble, Trump touted his economic policies as the key to taming post-pandemic price pressures. "Inflation is defeated. We're winning bigly on prices," he said, crediting tax cuts, deregulation, and energy independence for the supposed victory. The gathering, part of Trump's CEO Summit series, aimed to rally corporate support ahead of the midterm elections. Yet the timing couldn't be worse. The Bureau of Labor Statistics reported Wednesday that grocery costs surged 2.1% in December 2025 alone, the highest monthly jump since mid-2024. Staples like eggs, milk, and bread drove the increase, with overall food-at-home inflation hitting 4.3% year-over-year. Economists blame supply chain snarls from extreme weather in the Midwest and lingering avian flu outbreaks affecting poultry. Critics pounced. "This is tone-deaf," said Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren. "Families are choosing between groceries and gas while Trump plays cheerleader." Consumer advocacy group Foodwatch echoed the sentiment, noting that real-world pain contradicts White House optimism. Trump dismissed the numbers as fake news from the deep state. Administration officials pointed to cooling core inflation at 2.4% and projected Fed rate cuts as evidence of progress. Still, polls show 62% of Americans feel the pinch at checkout lines. As business chiefs nodded along, the disconnect highlights Trump's high-wire act, projecting strength amid data that tells a grittier story. With inflation a top voter concern, his message may energize the base, but risks alienating swing state shoppers. Japan and South Korea pledged to deepen bilateral cooperation on Wednesday as both nations confront escalating geopolitical tensions and Tokyo's deteriorating relations with Beijing. The commitment came during high-level talks in Tokyo between Japanese Foreign Minister Yoko Kamikawa and her South Korean counterpart, Cho Tae-yul. Amid China's assertive military maneuvers in the East China Sea and South China Sea, the two allies emphasized enhanced defense collaboration, intelligence sharing, and economic resilience. Regional stability demands our unity, Kamikawa stated, highlighting Japan's recent disputes with China over disputed islands and semiconductor supply chain vulnerabilities. Cho echoed the sentiment, noting North Korea's missile tests and cyber threats as shared risks. This vow builds on momentum from last year's normalization of ties, including resolving wartime labor disputes. The leaders announced joint military drills, expanded trilateral exercises with the U.S., and tech partnerships to counter China's dominance in rare earth minerals and AI. Analysts see this as a strategic pivot. With U.S. elections looming and Beijing's pressure mounting, Tokyo and Seoul are hedging bets, said Korea University expert Lee Sung-min. Critics in both countries warn of provoking China, but public support grows amid economic headwinds. The pact signals a maturing Indo-Pacific alliance, potentially reshaping East Asian security dynamics. A small but symbolic contingent of European troops has arrived in Greenland, marking a bold move to reinforce security on the strategically vital Arctic island as negotiations with the United States over its future grind to a halt. France led the deployment with 15 soldiers, followed by 13 from Germany. Norway and Sweden contributed additional personnel, bringing the total to around 50 troops. The forces landed at Nuuk's International Airport Thursday morning, greeted by Greenlandic officials and local media. Their mission: to bolster patrols, enhance surveillance, and support Denmark's oversight amid rising tensions in the resource-rich region. The deployment comes days after talks between Washington and Copenhagen collapsed. The U.S., under President-elect policies emphasizing Arctic dominance, has pushed for greater influence over Greenland's rare earth minerals and melting ice routes. Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen declared the negotiations at a wall, citing irreconcilable demands on sovereignty. Greenland's security is non-negotiable, Frederiksen said in a statement. Europe stands united to protect our shared interests. NATO allies framed the move as defensive, countering Russia's growing presence and China's mining bids, without invoking the alliance directly to avoid provoking the U.S. Greenland's government welcomed the troops but urged de-escalation. We seek partnership, not division, Premier Mutebi Egede told reporters. Analysts warn this could signal a new transatlantic rift, with the Arctic thaw accelerating geopolitical stakes. As European forces settle in, eyes turn to upcoming NATO summits. And the question is, will this troop rotation thaw US-Europe ties or freeze them further? Russian forces launched a massive missile strike early Thursday, obliterating a key energy facility on the outskirts of Kharkiv, according to Mayor Ihor Terekhov. The attack, which involved ballistic missiles and drones, left a gaping crater where the substation once stood, plunging large swaths of Ukraine's second-largest city into darkness. Terekhov confirmed the destruction via telegram, stating, "The enemy has targeted our energy infrastructure again. A major facility in the industrial district has been destroyed. Emergency services are responding, but repairs will take time amid winter cold." No immediate casualties were reported from the site, but the mayor urged residents to conserve power and prepare for rolling blackouts. Ukraine's Air Force reported intercepting 12 of 18 incoming missiles overnight. However, several missiles struck their targets in eastern Ukraine. The strike follows a pattern of intensified Russian assaults on civilian infrastructure, with Kharkiv, just 30 kilometers from the border, enduring near-daily barrages since Moscow's full-scale invasion in 2022. Energy Minister German Galushenko called it a deliberate war crime, estimating nationwide power generation capacity now at 60% after repeated hits. International observers, including the UN, condemned the attack, linking it to Russia's strategy to erode Ukrainian morale ahead of winter. Local utilities scrambled generators to hospitals and water plants, but Terekhov warned of prolonged outages. "We stand firm, but the world must see this barbarity," he said. Aid pledges from the EU and US aim to bolster defenses as Kyiv vows retaliation. In a pivotal address to Parliament on the 15th of January 2026, Venezuela's interim president Delcy Rodriguez unveiled sweeping reforms to the nation's hydrocarbon law, aiming to revitalize the oil sector amid economic turmoil. Rodriguez, sworn in on January 5 after U.S. forces seized former President Nicolas Maduro and his wife, Cilia Flores, in Caracas, signaled a departure from past policies restricting foreign involvement. The current law mandates that state-owned PDVSA holds majority stakes in joint ventures, deterring investors. Her proposal seeks legislative approval to ease these limits, targeting untapped fields lacking infrastructure. The reforms respond to U.S. demands for simpler access to Venezuela's vast reserves, with President Trump urging at least $100 billion in oil investments. Rodriguez emphasized diplomatic engagement with Washington while upholding national dignity. U.S. controlled accounts already hold $500 million from recent oil sales, per industry sources. Revenues will fund 2 sovereign wealth funds, one for social protection covering food, schools, and housing, the other for infrastructure like water, electricity, and roads. Oil income will prioritize workers, public services, and health, 75 centers identified for upgrades. Rodriguez vowed to channel every dollar from oil and gas into these needs. Oil executives deem Venezuela uninvestable due to risks, while environmental groups decry expanded extraction. Success hinges on U.S. relations post-Maduro's New York detention on drug charges. If approved, these changes could boost production, but political instability looms. That was the 7 Days Report Show. I'm your host, Vasilios Nikolaos Vitsalogiannis. Before signing off, I would like to thank you for listening to our news. Until next time, stay informed and be safe. Goodbye.